So I'll move to the main microphone this time. First of all, I've been asked to talk about succession and sort of best practices around succession planning. And I know in many cases, my capable opponent, Dr. Paul, made some very good points regarding some groups are doing it well. And in your organizations, I don't know all your organizations, but you've been successful, I think, because of a very, very robust succession plan that you've had in place. But there are some organizations that perhaps can use some help, and that's where my comments will be directed now. And my comments actually come from running a program that goes literally across the country in 11 different cities from Victoria to St. John's, and listening to groups, arts groups, and other not-for-profit groups on how they perform their succession plans. So the first thing I'd say is that you need a longer runway. To have a robust succession plan, you have to have time. The Nomination and Governance Committee should not be an annual task. It should be an ongoing committee. And it fits very well into our question around diversity as well. If real diversity is a goal of your organization, and the first candidates that are brought back do not meet those goals, it gives you time to go out and expand the pool, expand the search so you can achieve those goals. Organizations should be preparing a skills matrix where they first identify the skills that are needed and then plot the current membership of the board against those skill sets. The matrix should also include the term limits that are in place so that succession planning, as I said, should be an ongoing process. We need to move outside our peer groups and access other interested candidates to fill our board positions. And one great tool that I've heard mentioned right across the country is to have potential candidates start on committees. It makes a lot of sense. You have an opportunity to sort of test drive them. Are they conciliatory? Are they consensus builders? Do they appreciate the cause? Are they committed to the cause? And you're making a lot less of an investment in someone on a committee than you are as a director. Committees typically many don't have terms. If things aren't working out, they can be moved off a lot easier. If you've ever tried to get rid of a director, you know it is very, very difficult. The processes we have in place do not help. We have term limits now. What we have to do is establish reasonable limits to the number of terms. And what is that number? Well, you have to decide. I think in the boards I'm involved in, somewhere between 8 and 12 years actually. Many of the sports governing boards are based around the quadrennial games, the Olympic Games, Pan Am or Commonwealth Games are held on a quadrennial. So it's sort of 2 or 3 times 4. So 8 to 12 years seems to be the norm across the country. But we do need to rejuvenate boards. So having a limit to the number of terms is also important. I would advocate the succession of the chair involves a vice chair, someone who can fill in when the chair is unavailable and, if appropriate, can take that role on at an appropriate time. We need to recognize as well that the average director in an arts organization putting it somewhere around 125 to 150 hours a year. Now, in real terms, put it in a number of weeks. That's 3 to 4 weeks. And a chair, double it. So when you're thinking of taking on the role of the chair, and I've talked to many chairs across the country, and they agree, it's at least double that. So 250, 300 hours as a chair of a large arts organization. Again, you've put it in real terms, that's a number of weeks. Do they have the time? The succession plan also should have a robust review process. References for certain, police checks, perhaps. Your job as the Governance and Nominating Committee is also to protect the reputation of the organization. And you have to decide what hurdles you have to have. I just was involved in as I was a reference for someone joining or actually applying to the board of Girl Guides of Canada, and I was amazed at the process that they had in place and the checks that they did on the candidates. It was an excellent process. Oftentimes, we invite people onto the boards who really don't want to be there. Jim mentioned the role of donors. You want to ask somebody for their money. You don't have to have them on the board to do that. And in some instances, you're right. I think most directors expect and realize that joining an arts board is going to involve some form of a donation. I remember sitting on a board, a not-for-profit board actually not that long ago, and we just announced a large capital campaign. At the very next meeting, they announced that they would love to have 100% board participation, and they were at 92%. And I looked around the table, and I can do the math. I was that 8%. So I think when you join a board, specifically for an arts organization, it does come with a commitment to make a donation. But that doesn't mean that you have to have donors on the board as well. The hospitals have got this organized. They have foundations. They raise the money, and another board, often called the management board, determines and makes the decisions on how that money can be used appropriately. If we look at, we can still learn from the corporate environment as well. And we take a look at skills-based boards. As I mentioned in my previous remarks, we have lawyers, we have accountants, we have finance people, we have those skill sets that our organization needs. But I think it's important too to recognize that we need more representation from the sector. We need artists on our boards. And when we take a look at diversity, diversity is not just about gender. That's the corporate argument. In the not-for-profit and the arts communities, we have that taken care of, as I mentioned previously. But age, economic position, there's all kinds of other forms of diversity that should be recognized on our boards. So a robust process is not, it shouldn't be a mystery to anyone. It's there. We have specific goals. I think what governance and nomination committees have to do is sit down, decide exactly what those goals are, and then go about achieving them. The process doesn't necessarily have to be complicated. It just takes a commitment to change and a commitment to follow a specific process. And really, I think, Jim, that's, when you take a look, it's not a broad topic. I think we've fleshed out most of the good practices this afternoon. I would like, in closing, just to thank Jim for the invitation to come out here. I've enjoyed it tremendously. I'd like to thank Ross Paul, a very worthy opponent, and, a really nice person as well. And Seamus, not only for the excellent job as moderator, but also for the lift to the airport. Okay? Thank you very much.